Okay, welcome back everybody. So today I'm going to be talking about bead weaving in circles. I'm going to make it a little bit of a mini series, but more of that in a moment. So what's been happening out in the countryside? Well, it's been a bit of a mixed bag as far as weather is concerned. It is spring after all, so lots of sunshine and then lots of grey days. The Herdwick sheep have been careering about in the field next to us. So I don't know what's spooking them, and perhaps it's the joys of spring coming through. The leaves are unfurling, the cats from the farm are out and about, and it's quite a chilled feeling around the place. And one of the really nice things about this time of year is the change in the length of the day is increasing really dramatically. It's the fastest rate of change in the day length at the moment. So I know we're all really looking forward to those really, really long days up here in the north, where it's absolutely spectacular. So that's what we're all looking forward to. And spring is really springing everywhere. So the mini-series on the circular beadworking. And I'm going to make a little playlist up for you. So this first one is all about getting going, starting off those first few rows. And I'm going to try and go close in and show you how to do that. The next one in the series will tell you about how to use these in art, or how at least I use them in art. Another one will tell you about how to make them even bigger, because I do some really large circles, and I'll give you my pattern for that one. And then finally, there's going to be a major piece of work I'm going to do, and we'll have to see how that turns out. But it's all about the beads and the beadwork and the art, and as it all comes together. Okay, so you can, if you want, bead along with me, try and do some close-ups of what I'm doing, and I will let you know when to pause so that you can go and complete a row, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to zip ahead to the end of the row. So when I say pause, that's for all of you who are trying to have a go whilst I'm doing it, to just pause it whilst you finish off that row. You can find the starting rows in Diane Fitzgerald's book on shaped beads as well, so you can use that, but I take it a whole lot further and do large circles. So I always find it very useful, particularly when you're doing this kind of continuous bead weaving, to actually count out the beads for each of the rows. So I suggest that if you are following along, you count out these and put them in little piles of beads. So first of all, the 3 beads, which will be starting in the middle. Row 2 consists of 6 beads, row 3 another 6, then 12, 12, 12, 18, 18, 24, 24, 24. So overall you probably need a gram of these beads or something like that, at least several hundred beads to get us going. All right, so now we're going to dive in and try and do some close-ups, and hopefully this will work. I'm going to be using a bead needle and beading thread and Miyuki seed beads size 15. So they are very small, and it's really important that you use the right sort of beads that I'm using today for this particular pattern. So first of all, thread your needle with a good yard or so of thread and put on your first 3 beads which make up the first row. What you're going to do is pull the thread through, but not quite all the way to the end. You're going to leave a little bit of a length there to finish off. And the way I finish this bit off is I make sure that I hold that little piece of thread really tight between my fingers, and then bring this one through so that I can pull the thread tight on those 3 beads. I don't know if you can see that. And then I just need to put that needle through there without catching that thread, and go back through in the same direction as the original thread. So then pull that all the way through, and this is actually the worst bit, because the thread goes everywhere and there's not a lot to hold on to in your fingers. So then you begin to pull that tight, and you have to reposition the beads, so that you might have to turn it over like I'm doing there, so they look like that with the thread towards you, this little bit of thread here. And I like to finish this first row off by going through the first bead in the same direction once again. So in order to do that again, I'm going to pull that little thread tight there and try and go in through that first bead. You can go through 2 beads if you want, it doesn't matter. But this is to help secure it a little bit better than just leaving it there with one round. So then you can pull it tight, and hopefully, I don't know how well you can see it, there's a little group of 3 beads all in a circle as best you can. Okay, now for the second row. So you'll need 3 sets of 2 beads. This is why I said it's really good to count them out in advance. So we're going to collect 2 beads, and then you're going to go in the same direction through, well, what was the second bead, but now it's going to be the first bead in your next row. So go through that bead and pull that through. Get your next 2. Go through the next bead in the first row. It's really quite challenging at the start to know which bead is which. So pull that through. Next 2 beads. And then, this is the tricky bit, hold that little thread at the back, go through your final bead, and you then have to step up. You know what stepping up is? It's when you go around in a whole circle, you get to the end, but then you have to go through the next bead. So what I'm going to do here is, I've gone through here, my last bead in the first row, and I'm going through the first bead in the row that I've just put on. So I come out having stepped up, and that's the really hard thing to spot when you first start beading, and then you pull it tight. So you can see now it's looking, well, quite honestly, pretty poor at the start. It doesn't look like a circle, it doesn't look like anything in particular, you know. So the next row consists of another 6 beads. So we've already stepped up, and we're going to work those through next. So 1, 2, 3, sends me 6 beads. Far better to measure them out, count them out to start with. So we're going to go through 1. Now, by counting them out, it's much easier to make sure that you don't make a mistake. So that's the first one. The next one, you'll be able to see, falls between that bead and the next of the 2. And the next one is on that 2 as well. This one is going to next 2. Sorry about that, folks, that's just the cuckoo interrupting as well. So there we go, that's there. 2 more beads on this row. So nearly there. Oop, gotta pull that through. And 1 more. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this, but I do have a diagram on screen as well. And so pull that through. And so you're beginning to get something that's looking slightly hexagonal, ever so slightly hexagonal. All right, so the next row, you have to have 12, so that's 6 2s. So I'm just counting out here, and there you go. So 6 2s, and so I'm going to just show you the first one, and then I'm going to say to you to pause it there, and we'll come back at the end of it. So I'm going to go through that one over there, so at the peaks of the hexagonal. Okay, so we'll pause it there and we'll come back in just one moment. So we're back now after having done the 4th row. Did you remember to do the step up? Hopefully you did. So now we're going to go on to the next row, which has another 12 beads. And the challenging thing is to sit the beads, not only between those 2, but between the doubles that you've added on. And this is where seed beads come into their own. Because they have that curvature, these tend to sit very, very nicely, far nicer than a cylinder bead would. So if I'm really looking for a nice circular shape, I would always recommend using seed beads rather than cylinder beads. So I'm going to add on my next 12 now, and so if you're following along and beading along, then we'll just do the first few so you can see the change. So through that next one, so we've stepped up and going through the next one. It's very, very small on the camera. Here. Oops. And then this is where we're going through the doubles. So there's 2 beads there, and you just have to be able to pick your way through and make that new bead sit in between the 2 beads that you added on earlier. Okay, so we'll come back when I've completed that row. Okay, did you remember to step up again? And for the 6th row, we're going to add in another set of 12 beads, all individually placed around that again. Okay, so I'll just start it off, and then we will pause the camera to make sure you can get to the end. If you're beading along, then we'll see how this looks. Okay, so that's the first one, and the second one coming through there, and we'll just pause the camera and zip along to the end of that row. Now you should have got to the end of your 6th row, and it should be looking something like this. Hopefully it does. And you continue in this fashion, working your way outwards, just using the pattern that I have described in an earlier shot. And I think I'll put this in the description, which is down below in the description for the video. Now, the important thing to note, at times it will look a little bit more hexagonal-like because of the way the 2s and the 1s interplay with each other. But you will find as it gets bigger and bigger, it gets more and more circular as it goes. So, hopefully you've managed to follow all of that, and we'll have completed your first part of your circle. We'll come back later in the mini-series, so keep watching and do subscribe. What I just want to do now is compare using different beads, sizes and types, to what the output is like. So I'm just going to grab here ones that I've made earlier. So, for instance, this one is a lovely one, and it has it's made out of Miyuki seed beads, and I've done a different colour for each row. And this is the size 15, and so it's the smallest beads. So that means they pinch together really, really nicely. There's very, very few gaps. And as each row progresses, they sit in even more denser and denser and denser as you continue on. The next size of bead up, still Miyuki seed beads. You can see it's a little bit more ragged. It doesn't sit together quite as nicely as I would like anyway. So, you know, you get a different effect. You certainly get a different effect with that. And then even larger, so these will be size 8s, I think. Again, this almost looks like a children's toy, but you might be wanting this particular effect. So it's up to you to experiment and see how these work. For a little bit of fun, I also tried some delicas. So these are size 11 Miyuki delicas. And you can see, if you were to actually put this together and at the start, it's very, very triangular, and it is quite hexagonal in its shape. And it's very, very, very rigid, not like these. These are nice and soft and flowing. This is very, very rigid, yeah. So if you could demonstrate here, I guess, I don't know if you can see, this just flops, and that just, yeah, so, yeah. And it's quite difficult to make sure that it stays flat as well. So that's a bit of a challenge. So you definitely get holes in that one. And again, it's a different effect. This is very sort of chrysanthemum-like, I think, this one. So hopefully that's been useful. What I'm planning to do is also test out some icos and see how they compare as well. And also, what I haven't tried are Delica's size 15. So just today I've ordered some Delica size 15, so I'm going to see how they compare with all these other things as well. Very different arrangements. So do stay tuned, do subscribe, look out for this mini-series. So I'm going to look at how to do bigger circles, what that pattern is, and how to use that in art. So stay tuned. Same time, same place.